So far in this class, whenever we were talking about allocation bases, we spent a lot of time just focusing on how to allocate, not on how to pick an effective allocation base. For this upcoming exam, you will have a problem where you get to pick your allocation bases for certain types of costs that need to be allocated. Now, I will tell you that there is a big difference between a good allocation base, a bad allocation base, and a straight up wrong allocation base. So for example, if let's say that we were allocating, that would be a good one. Let's say that we were deciding to allocate the costs of our HR department. We wanted to allocate those costs of HR. If we decided that we want to allocate the cost of HR, a good one perhaps would be number of employees in each department. So one thing I'm going to ask you to do on this next exam is be very detailed about what you're saying when you're choosing your allocation basis, because I want to make sure that you truly understand what you're doing. So we could go ahead and take the costs in HR, and based on the number of employees in each department spread amongst the company, we could allocate that cost of HR. A bad indicator, let's go ahead and choose a bad allocation base. Here, we'll stick with something that I heard someone say in class. All right, so a bad one would be number of pets owned by each employee. Yep, we can allocate based on that, but it wouldn't necessarily be a good allocation base. So for example, if we're talking about human resources, they deal a lot with the individual employees. So if we're allocating based on number of employees in each department, that would make sense. But if we're allocating based on number of pets owned by each employee, we absolutely can allocate based on that. It's just not a good one to use. Now, a wrong allocation base is if you said number of employees in HR. So if you wrote number of employees in HR, that doesn't allocate anything. That literally brings back all of HR's costs right back to HR. Remember, the point of allocation is to go ahead and allocate those costs amongst different departments. So here, if you said number of employees in HR, I'd say, okay, let's say there's 10 employees in HR. Okay, 10 out of 10 is 100%, so all of the costs would just go back to HR. That's not the purpose of allocation. So if we were saying the number of employees in each department, good, that's great. Number of pets owned by employees, not a great one, but we can do it. Number of employees in HR, wrong. We cannot allocate using that. When it comes to the exam, I will be giving you points as long as you give me a good or even bad allocation base. As long as you could possibly allocate based on those items, I will go ahead and give you the points for it. However, if you give me something that's wrong, then I'm not going to be giving points on the exam for that. So for example, a really popular one that we see a lot is a fitness center. We usually get a lot of wrong answers for this one. So let's say that a company has a fitness center at its location, and they want to allocate the cost of that fitness center to the different employees. So a really good allocation base would probably be, let's say they had key cards that track who uses it. Key card swipes by employees for each department. So for example, we have a gym here on campus. Let's say that the employees in accounting swipe their card to get in 10 times during the month, but the employees over in biology use it 100 times during the month. Then a significantly larger portion of that fitness center costs are going to be allocated to biology versus accounting because they use it more. So that would be a very good way of allocating that cost. A bad one, let's say that they decided to allocate it based on something silly. You can say square footage, but that's not silly enough for me. See, square footage, I mean, you could kind of argue, well, the bigger the building, the more likely there's more employees that would be in there, but I'd say, oh, that's a little rough. Let's say they decided to do it based on the age. And I'm doing this a little bit ignorantly because I don't know if age is tied to gym use, perhaps inversely, but age of employees from each department. So we could go ahead and find the age and add them all up, and then those with a significantly higher number of years, they could be allocated more of the fitness center's use, which I don't think that they are correlated, but who knows, I might be wrong here, but essentially we could do it. It just isn't a good allocation base. You could even do number of employees in each department, and it would be a lot better than this randomness that's going on here. So if you answered each of these on the exam, I would say, okay, great, I'm giving you points for that. Now, if you said instead, number of pieces of fitness equipment, that's just straight up wrong. So if you say that we want to allocate based on number of fitness equipment, that doesn't allocate that cost of that fitness center out to the other departments at all. That's literally allocating back to itself, and we cannot allocate back to ourselves, right? So here, now number of fitness equipment, I can't go ahead and take that money and put it right back into our fitness center. I need to be costing it out to other departments. So that one would be wrong. If you answered each of these for these two examples, that would be an example of wrong ones. Now, you might notice here when we're taking a look, one second, I'm going to go ahead and quiet that up. So when we're taking a look at these different areas, when you're taking a look at the allocation bases at the end of your chapter, you'll notice that some of the examples are very vague. So for example, they'll say things like number of employees. I want more than number of employees. I want you to be very exact with how you're doing it. So as you're going through these different areas, try to be as specific as possible as the allocation base that you want to use.